welcome back to my channel. I am super late with this, but I wanted to really quickly do my February wrap up to show you the books that I read. Sadly enough, I only have 2 of them to show you because the other ones were either from the library or audiobook, also from the library. So I have a short list. I actually got way more done than I thought I was going to. Audiobooks are helping me kind of kill my goals this year, and some people don't think that's real reading. Whatever, it helps me get through more than I would normally. Sorry for your view. But I guess we'll just get into that, and I'm going to go in the order that I read them and finished them. So the first book, I've got my list here in front of me on Goodreads, by the way. So the first thing that I finished this month was, and I listened to this on audiobook, but I have the actual book. I bought a couple of James Patterson books at the thrift store, and this was one of them. So I listened to it on audiobook, which his audiobooks are really quick to listen to. If you look at the book, like, it's really spaced out. Like, it's not going to be that hard to finish this book. But if you watched my January wrap up, I think Worst Case was actually supposed to be on this one, but apparently I can't handle dates of any kind, so I accidentally put that in my January wrap up. But I really liked the quickie a lot more than I did Worst Case. I also talked about this in my blog because Worst Case kind of felt like, okay, this is kind of obvious, you know, when it started talking about the killer and what was happening and what he was doing to certain people, you kind of figure out what his goal was pretty easily. But in the quickie, I don't know, I would be talking about this with my boyfriend. He's like, oh, well, this is gonna happen. I was like, nope, I thought that too, and it didn't happen. So just a lot more twists and turns, almost to the point where I got to too many twists and turns, but I'm all about that life. So no complaints from me here. So this story follows Lauren Stillwell, who's like kind of an investigator, I guess, in New York City, and she thinks that her husband is cheating on her. She sees her husband going into a hotel with another woman. She confronts him about it, kind of. She asks him what's going on during his day, and he kind of brushes that off, like he doesn't really answer her question. So she really thinks that he is cheating on her because of that. And then she ends up turning around and having an affair with this guy that she works with, and his name is Scott. And ends up being, like the title says, just kind of a quickie kind of thing. And they, you know, start to kind of move on, and she's wondering, you know, whether this is going to go anywhere or not, because he's kind of this huge eligible bachelor where she works. She ends up seeing her husband, Paul, attacking Scott, and it kind of seems like it's supposed to be secretive, like nobody's supposed to know, and she ends up witnessing this, but he doesn't know that she was there. So she sees him like put Scott in the back of the car and take him away, and she's okay, well, they're gonna go to a hospital and get help. And so she goes home, and then she ends up getting put on a case where you know, the victim ends up being Scott, and he's kind of been, his body's just been dumped in, you know, not a great area, so there's a lot of finger pointing there, like it could be really anybody that lives there. So they kind of follow this guy, this suspect that they think it's going to be, because he's, you know, threatened police officers in the past and, you know, had a history of violence, so they go and follow him, and the whole time she knows exactly what's happened. So it's kind of that struggle of like, you know, this is her job, and she kind of is pretending to solve this case and putting the blame on a lot of other people, even though she knows that this was most likely her husband. So pretty scandalous and stressful in that way, that she's kind of trying to figure out what she's going to do and who she can turn to, and that obviously there's no way that this doesn't come out. You know, they're going to put people away, and they're going to figure out, it's all going to come out. So then it kind of goes into her relationship with Scott, and there's a lot of twists and turns, and I'm not going to, you know, go into that, but there's a lot of twists and turns with them in regards to, is he cheating? Why did he do this? You know, did he know about her and Scott? And, you know, so it all kind of comes out, and it's very dramatic, and I really, really liked this. This was kind of one of those almost like a guilty pleasure type read, to where, like, you know that it's not super true to life, but it was very entertaining. So I really liked that one. So the next book that I read, and for all the audiobooks that I read, I keep messing with my hair. I'm really sorry. The wind was blowing really bad when I was leaving work today, and I feel like my hair is everywhere, and it just gets on my nerves. But anyway, the next book that I read was an audiobook, so I'll try to insert pictures of all the books that I don't have for you. And this one I picked out of the library. Literally, well, this was one I checked out. And I literally picked it up because of the cover. I had that moment where I was going to be that shallow person. And so the next one is Among the 10,000 Things by Julia Pierpont. And this one was different. This one was definitely different. And there's a lot of really good reviews online. And I talked about this one in my blog as well. But it kind of starts off with this letter that you can tell is kind of from the other woman. And it goes into, an affair and what happened, and she's kind of trying to be truthful with the wife. You can tell she's talking to her and telling her all these things, that happened during the affair and what it meant to her, and then it goes right into the story. And it starts off where Kay, this young girl, she comes to her apartment in the afternoon, and she's walking up and she gets a box from the doorman, and he says, like, this is a package for your mom, but you can take it up. And she, being a kid, is really curious about what's in the package. So she opens it and she finds tons of things like emails and letters and just printed text and different things like that from a woman that's been sleeping with her dad behind her mom's back. So the whole affair was between this other woman and Deb Shanley, which is the mother in the story. So she's trying to figure out what she's going to do. Is she going to tell her mom? She's obviously furious, and it's a little much for a kid to have read, so it's kind of scarring to her. Obviously you would be traumatized as a kid to read, really explicit messages from someone to your dad, when you kind of have this image of your parents being together and, being happy. So drama right off the bat. And then she ends up telling her brother about the package, and they kind of, one thing leads to another, and obviously her mother figures it out and sees all of the things that were in the package for her. And then, so that kind of starts a turmoil in the family, and the family does start to fall apart. And it kind of portrays her dad, who's kind of this artist, as he's really full of himself, really stuck up, kind of narcissistic, like everybody wants me and I'm so great. And she kind of left everything behind to be with him, the wife did. And she was a dancer for a long time, and she kind of had to let go of those dreams and move into marriage and family life for him. But you kind of get this feeling of that she definitely has known something before. She's at least been suspicious by the way that she, informs her mother of the affair and what's happened. So, and it does, I like how it kind of follows through and shows as this progresses, even, obviously the argument and the stuff that goes on between husband and wife, but also the other side of like what happens with the kids. And I haven't, I would say obviously, but y'all know me, so I don't know why I'm saying that, but I haven't experienced this before. I haven't, my parents haven't split up, and I haven't been married, so I haven't dealt with an affair on my own. So I can't really speak to how accurate this is of a portrayal of what happens, when a family gets completely torn apart because of, infidelity. But I really enjoyed it. I did a really good job portraying what I would assume would happen in this situation. I wouldn't say it was super, it was kind of funny in times, but it was kind of heartbreaking, and just kind of telling of what that family life would be when you're struggling to hold yourself together in a moment of crisis. But I like that different perspective of, it's not just the husband versus wife, I find out because you left something out or whatever situation, but also just keep getting it into the hands of the kids and having that as a different way to reveal this affair. I really thought that was really cool. And there's this weird part in the middle that I don't know if I truly understood it, but it was like a what would happen in the future, like way into the future. And it was kind of at a weird spot, but it was different and I enjoyed it. I just don't know if I truly understood the purpose of it. And there's a lot of reviews online that talk about that if you want to look those up. But overall, I really like this. I didn't give it, I think I gave it like 3 out of 5 stars because it was quick and it was entertaining, but it wasn't something that I was like dying to get into every single day. Often I would put it aside and pick up something else because I was kind of, I don't know, tired of it, I guess. Because some of it was a little bland. The beginning and the end is where the most action is, and kind of in the middle it fades in and out with different things. So the next book that I listened to on audiobook was The Store by James Patterson. And if you're seeing a James Patterson theme, that's because there's a lot of those audiobooks in my library, like a ton. Of course, he has a lot of books, so that makes sense, but they're really quick and they're really easy to listen to. Even if I get kind of distracted, it's easy to go back and retrace my footsteps with, what's happened. And the tracks are broken up, pretty, I don't know how to describe it. The tracks are really short. So like if I am driving and I'm looking at something and I start thinking about something else, I just have to go, back a couple minutes at a time. With the audiobooks I'm listening to right now on RV Digital, it's like 30 minutes for a track. And I'm like, oh God. If I get lost in one of those, it's going to be pretty bad. So I read The Store, or listened to The Store, I guess. And this had a lot of, had 1984 type vibes. It wasn't as good as 1984. I had to adjust because my leg's asleep, like really asleep. I can't feel any of it. This hurts really bad. But it's about Jacob Brandeis and his family discover this store, and it's kind of, I don't know, you would almost compare it to Amazon. Like it has everything you could ever need. But the people who are in control of the store are very controlling in people's lives. So if you come and you work for the store and live almost in this little tiny community that the store is involved in, they control everything in your life and they know everything that you're doing. So they move from their old home to where they're going to live so that they can work for the store, and there's surveillance cameras all through the house. Like every inch of the house is covered. Even the bathrooms. Oh gosh. Oh, my leg is so asleep. Oh, it hurts so bad. So much tingling. But anyway, they move into their house, and there's just little weird things like the pantry is stocked with exactly the type of food that they eat, the brand, everything. And then some of the one of their kids had been missing a stuffed animal or something that they lost on a plane, I think, or left in the airport. And the stuffed animal is there, and I know that it's the one because there's like a rip or a stain or something, and it's just very unsettling from the beginning. And as they're moving in, they suddenly, all these people that live in their community just rush to help them move in without even asking, and everybody knows what they're doing all the time. So their purpose of moving into this community is because Jacob Brandeis and his wife want to write a book, kind of, I guess, exposing all of the secrets. So they want to kind of live that life and see what it's like, and then tell everyone what's actually happening. And it kind of feels like almost like a dead end mission for most of it, because they know literally everything. So what are you going to get away with? So there's a lot of secrets that they're keeping. They're meeting a lot of people that can tell them different things about the store, and it's very strange. It's pretty creepy, and then obviously you'll find out if he actually gets to expose the store or not. I definitely did enjoy this. Like I said, it's kind of like 1984, very Big Brother. Everybody's watching you constantly. They have devices that tell people where you are at all times. Everywhere they go, everybody seems to know them and what they're doing. So it's just kind of unsettling a little bit. So my next book that I read, and this one I did read physically, I got at the library, and this is again one that I saw that I was like, I really like the cover of that book. It was like on display instead of sideways in the shelf, and they don't put like, I don't think they put super popular books out sometimes. Like I never heard of any of these books that I picked up this last few times. That I haven't seen like a huge hype about these books, so they're not new, and I haven't seen anybody ever read them before, so I don't know how popular they are. They have good reviews. I didn't even look at that, I just took it home. But this one is called Five by Ursula Archer. And this one is set, where did I say this one was set in? Austria, I think. And it's a detective main character again, Beatrice Caspery. And I loved this book. Like, at first it was kind of strange. I was like, this is going to be really lame and this is not going to be exciting. Because when I read the cover, the little sleeve, and it just seems so, like, right here it says, it has like a GPS coordinate and it says a dismembered hand. Then it has another coordinate, it says 2 severed ears. Then it has another coordinate and it says a mutilated corpse. So the whole premise of this murder mystery is that they're finding things and they have, like I said, coordinates on them and locations. So, like, what is the puzzle? What is their location that they have in common? And it starts with the corpse of a woman, and on her feet she has a tattoo of the GPS coordinates. And they end up finding a few other bodies and getting all these clues, and Beatrice kind of thinks, well, they have to be linked, if they're being killed by the same person who is obviously trying to send us some kind of message with all these clues that they're sending, which, sometimes that's kind of the connection they always make, is that, these people must know each other or have something in common. And that's not always the case, but it always kind of seems more interesting if it is, because, I don't know, that's what I like. I watch a little too much CSI and Criminal Minds and all that kind of stuff. They end up finding a total of 5 victims. And as she's going through, she's trying to make contacts, and then the killer actually starts making contact with her via text. And just kind of sending her little, I don't even know, just short sayings where she's trying to kind of figure out, like, what does this mean? Like, he'll send her something and it's like, you're cold. Like, and she takes that as, okay, I'm nowhere close to where I need to be in this case, and the clues. So anyway, I wish I love this so much that I wish I could tell you what happens. And I don't know, I like want to talk to somebody about it, because I feel like, I love talking about books with people, but if no one's read it, then it's hard to like, oh, I really liked this. I mean, most people in my life are probably not going to read it. I'm not friends with a lot of readers, which is sad, other than Instagram. That is such a sad thing to say. I'm only friends with people online that are readers. But I really liked this book. And like I said, I started out reading it and I was like, this is kind of weird. The Austrian names were really hard to read in my head. Like, I had to look up how to say some of them, pronounce some of them, because it was bugging me. I couldn't remember who was who because I couldn't figure out like the pronunciation of their names. But I don't know. It's a really interesting book. There's so much I want to say about this, but I will hold it in for your sake and not spoil it. But I would say 100%, I would say definitely pick this book up. I know that synopsis is kind of short for giving you kind of a heads up of what about the book, but that's literally like all you would get from the cover, is that they have the corpses have coordinates on them, and they're trying to figure out what that means and how they're connected. And I'm obsessed. I will probably have to buy this one, because I have a weird thing about reading things at the library, loving them, and then wanting it for myself for all of eternity. So that's exciting. And the last book that I finished in February was a slow burner, and this was The Time Traveler's Wife. And I loved this. Don't get me wrong, it took me forever to read this. I don't know why. I don't know if I was like in a rut or kind of, I don't know what you call it, like a slump a little bit, but I just couldn't get anywhere, any reading in. I was reading like 5 pages here and there. So it took me 4 actual ever. Also, this book is weirdly heavy. I don't know what it's made out of. It's like the paper's different. I don't know. But it is weirdly heavy. This is one that a lot of people have read, kind of one of your more popular romance books, and it's a very different premise than, other romances. So you have Henry and you have Claire, which are your main characters, and Claire is stuck in the present and Henry is the time traveler, hence the Time Traveler's Wife. And I actually watched the movie when it came out years ago. And I had no idea at the time. I wasn't a big reader at the time, and I did not know that it was a book. And I found this at a thrift store and picked it up. And I've had it on my list for actual ever. And I just never got around to it. So when I was making my TBR for this year, I thought, February would be a great time to pull out some romances and do that. Clearly, I did really good on the romance thing. So this was really the only romance that I've... So it goes back and forth in time, obviously time traveling, a lot. So you kind of, as it goes on, you start to make those connections between the years and, what they're doing at that time. And it helps you kind of remember the storyline as it goes. So Claire actually meets Henry, when she's really, really young. He time travels from the future, ends up in the meadow near her house. So she, as a child, ends up leaving. When he time travels, he ends up with no clothes on, and he always is like super starving whenever he gets where he's going. So she would leave him like snacks and clothes for all the times that he would come to the meadow, and he actually ends up at some point leaving her almost like a schedule. So dates that he knows that he's going to be there so that she can go and look for him. And when I was watching the movie, I thought that was really weird. I was like, okay, this is kind of creepy. There's this 30-year-old guy visiting this little girl and telling her that they're gonna get married, because I totally did not understand the whole thing at first. And that's where it kind of starts in the movie. It's like, hey, this little girl, and oh, here's just naked man, and what is happening? So a little strange. But their relationship is so neat and different and strong. Like, I don't know if I could ever be in Claire's position, because she is constantly waiting for him. But it's kind of beautiful in the same way, because there's just, I don't know, their relationship is just, I don't know, it's like nothing I've ever really read before. And it's really cute. Like, people always think that she's really weird because she doesn't have a boyfriend and she never mentions anybody, but she can't, because she doesn't, like, obviously no one's gonna believe her. She's like, oh, I'm dating this guy, we're gonna get married, and we're gonna do this, and we're gonna live here, and he knows everything that's gonna happen because he's a time traveler. Like, how do you explain it? Like, he literally just disappears randomly. And the way that he explains it is that it's almost like a genetic disorder, and that it's almost triggered like epilepsy. In different stressful situations, so he runs a lot to try to keep it, stay in the present and be where he wants to be, because it gets, when they get married and different things, it's like, what if he just randomly is gone and nobody knows where he is and nobody knows when he's coming back? So a lot of stress. But then he also figures out, what's going to happen to certain people, but the problem is he can't stop anything from happening. So that gets really frustrating with, like, I know so-and-so is going to die. I know this and this is going to cause, a big disaster, but it is what it is. Like, I just have to continuously watch it happen. So you kind of experience a lot of pain with that, on his side and her side. You see them both go through just the changes that life brings, and different things when they start to, try to have a baby. That causes a lot of problems with the time traveling thing. Because it's a genetic disorder, it does get passed on, to their child, but there's a lot of complications with that. So I really, really liked this. There's so many things, like, there's just so many elements in this story that had to be really thought out, in my opinion. It just makes it I like it. It makes it a really different romance, a really unique story. So it's very different from your, like, boy meets girl and they fall in love and that's pretty much it. There's a lot of struggle in the story, and just that pain of, like I said, like, knowing the future and not being able, to do anything about it. So definitely sad. There's a lot of definitely sad, funny, just every emotion ever was in this book. Definitely the ending got me. I don't remember if this ending was in the movie. It's been forever since I've watched it, but I don't feel like I remembered the ending happening. I think it cut out the wrong place, for sure. So I love to rewatch the movie and see you know, what the similarities are. There are a lot of things that happened that were exactly like the movie, and portrayed pretty well from what I remember. But again, it's been a really long time, and I only saw it once. I saw it in theaters, and that was it. So I'll need to check that out again and see if that happens. But the ending, like, I don't know. It kind of made the whole thing worth it. Like, it was really good. It was really well thought out. And I believe that is it. I checked my list this time. Last time, if you want to go on my blog and check out my thoughts on In Harm's Way, which is a story about the USS Indianapolis sinking, I wrote a whole shebang on that because I left it off of my January video. And I'm really sad about that. And I don't know how that happened. I do know how that happened. I didn't even look. I did not even look at my list. I literally just went, oh, I read that. Oh yeah, I read that. And looked through my shelf and stopped. Why? No clue. But that's what happened. So go me. Learn my lesson. I'm now always going to be checking my Goodreads because as soon as I get a book done, I lock it on there. So that's that. But I wrote a whole thing about In Harm's Way because the reason that I read it and that I was so interested in that subject is because I love the movie Jaws, which, by the way, the book is amazing if you haven't read it. Ending's a little weird, but I am obsessed with Jaws. I love all kinds of shark movies. I don't know. It's an obsession that I have. But when Captain Quint is talking about the USS Indianapolis sinking on the ship, when he's talking about like seeing his friends die, and I don't think he says Indianapolis in there, but for a long time I didn't realize that was a real thing. He was talking about a real event, and it was used to kind of explain why Quint was so crazy about killing sharks. And then I was watching, I think it was River Monsters, again, weird obsession with things, and they were talking about black tip sharks, white tip, some kind of color of a tip of a shark, and that they were, super aggressive. They weren't highly known for being really aggressive, but one of the times that they were really aggressive was in the sinking of the USS Indianapolis, and it went into that story, and then it said, like, as it was going through the story, I was like, that's 100% what he's talking about in Jaws, and it just hit me. And so when I saw In Harm's Way, I think on Amazon or something, in the history section, I was like, I have to know everything about the story. And it was heartbreaking. It was so obviously, nothing good is going to happen nothing good is going to come from the sinking of a ship. But, it was sad in ways that I didn't even expect. But amazing. So I shipped that book to my brother, who's in the Navy, and because he was also really interested in that subject in the past when we had talked about it. And the book was written amazingly. It was definitely one of those life-changing ones. I love reading stories like that, and just expanding my knowledge, I guess. But I wrote a whole thing on my blog about that speech and how it relates to the USS Indianapolis and some of the things, that I liked about that story, and some of the things that really kind of got to me about that story. Because like I said, it's immensely heartbreaking. Like, if you want to cry a lot, get that book. But also, it teaches you a lot about our history. I mean, just knowing things that have happened. It's one of the biggest, naval disasters ever recorded. So, it was just another kind of interesting thing to just know. So, that kind of wraps that up. If you want to see what I am going to be reading for the rest of the year, I will link down below my TBR and all that kind of stuff with my blog if you want to see what's coming up, to just kind of know what's going to be in my next video. Like I said, I read a lot more than I expected to. It's already happened in March as well, so I have the books that are on my TBR, plus hopefully I already have one extra. Hopefully I'm going to have two extra for this month that are over my goal. So I'm almost, I think I'm halfway to my goal for the year. So I'm going to have to up my goal a little bit maybe. But anyway, that's it for this one. If you want to continue seeing my updates, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and maybe check out some of my other videos if you haven't watched them already. Be sure to leave me any kind of comments and likes and, feedback for whatever you want to see. Do you like spoilers? Do you not like spoilers? I always feel like I shouldn't have spoilers in these videos, but I guess we just do whatever we want. So there's that. But I hope to see you guys next time, and stay tuned for what I'm reading in March. See ya!